Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World, and with me are Farrukh, Pitafi and Raja Faisal. In today's show, we're going to be talking about two segments. The first story is going to be focusing on what has been recently discussed a lot, and we've also been talking about it in our shows. The policy decision that has been taken by the Apex Committee meeting in line with the security situation of the country is, of course, with regards to illegal foreign nationals residing in Pakistan and their involvement in various illegal activities, including terrorist activities within the country. And for this reason, a deadline of the end of the month has been given to them for them to be able to leave this country if they are residing illegally in Pakistan, after which action is going to be taken. We also know that previously different actions were already put in place regarding the illegal Afghans residing in Pakistan, and a number of people had been detained with regards to investigations and their involvements in illegal activities and terrorist activities within the country. And a number of these, of course, have been found involved in such activities, including many of those who have been residing in KP. And this is important, especially in terms of the way that we are going to be taking a look at the situation and whether or not this is something that will then impact the relationship between the Afghan Taliban regime and Pakistan. How exactly is this procedure being carried out? Since, of course, a lot of objections have been raised from the Afghan Taliban regime regarding this policy decision, and others internationally as well, perhaps confusing this with the status of refugees in Pakistan who still remain under the protection of the country, and the refugee laws in Pakistan, of course, has been taking care of them for quite some time now and will continue to do so. We also know that the eviction of the illegal Afghans have also kick-started yesterday with a number of Afghan families reaching the Turkmen border, after which legal documentations, there's going to be a process involved in them returning to Afghanistan. And this is just the beginning of such random activities, and it's important, of course, in terms of the kind of investigations that are being carried out within the country. So we're going to be taking a look at what this means. And what sort of possible consequences will such actions be, particularly both within the country and outside as well. We're also going to be taking a look at the in our next segment of the show at some good news that Pakistan is able to see in the beginning of the ICC World Cup. There has been a defeat of New Zealand at the hands of the Pakistan team for 205 win by 81 runs, and this is important, especially given the fact that a lot of criticism has been going around and a lot of hindrances are being created for the Pakistan cricket team, the spectators and the journalists in India. Despite all of that, of course, and the kind of pressure that there may be, of course, at Indian home soil, there is, of course, a victorious situation at the moment. Of course, this is just the beginning of the World Cup, but we're going to be taking a look at how important this victory is for Pakistan's success in the overall tournament. That is going to be our discussion at the end of the show. Of course, Farrukh and Faisal will be part of the discussion. We've also been joined for our first segment regarding the eviction of illegal Afghans in Pakistan by Brigadier Retired Mr. Rashid Janjua, who's Director of Research, IPRI. Thank you very much, Brigadier Saab, for being a part of the discussion. And let me start with your take on exactly how you perceive this particular policy decision. A lot of debate has been sparked since the announcement of the deadline of the end of this month for illegal foreign nationals within the country to go back to their country. And of course, the strict action is important in terms of the way that it's impacting the security situation in Pakistan, and it has been clarified by the country that this is a top priority of Pakistan and that they will be proceeding with whatever actions are necessary in this matter. But in terms of the kind of feedback that is being given from different quarters, including the Afghan Taliban regime, calling this process inhumane, how would you respond in terms of what is being done and the kind of rights that are being given to the Afghans residing in the country?
Thank you, Sana, for having me. We must understand that the present initiative that has been taken by the government, it has been taken against illegal migrants. Those with the legal status, like there are 1.4 million Afghan refugees with a proper refugee status, and what they have proof of registration. 1.4 million, they are integrated and they are being offered all the facilities, right to education, shelter. Though Pakistan is not signatory to 1951 Refugee Convention and its additional protocol 1967. But despite that, Pakistan has had 8 agreements with UNHCR, and presently we are also having 2 agreements which are multinational. One is tripartite between UNHCR, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. And the second is between Pakistan, Afghanistan, UNHCR, and Iran. Now, this initiative is all about illegal migrants, those who are not registered, and according to varying estimates, their strength is well above 1 million. Now, other than that, there are 1.3 million Afghan refugees who have been given the status, but they don't have proof of registration, but they have Afghan citizen certificates. So there are various categories, and it has to be understood that this campaign essentially is against the illegal migrants, which to my opinion was quite essential because they were posing a threat to internal security, and they were involved in many shadowy activities. They were part of organized crime. They were involved in smuggling, and nobody knew where they are scattered because there is no data against them. I think this would be a very uh, much needed. This is a very much needed measure, and the next important step that has been taken is a single entry regime based on passport and visa, which was earlier not the case. Uh, the Afghan refugees, those who used to come, and we know that they used to come getting a document from Afghanistan, which is called Tazkara. The cross-border movement was on the basis of that. And there were several versions, written version, e-version of that. But now a single entry regime in the shape of passport and visa has been ensured, which enable a greater control of the cross-border movement, and we'll be able to track who is coming and who is going. Earlier on, this data set was not very well managed, and that led to the problems like unaccounted for Afghans. So on that score, it's a good initiative, but we must take into consideration that actual the devil lies in the details. Once we go and implement this thing, it's a very good decision. Deadline has been given, and a single entry regime has been effected. But how it is going to be implemented, who will monitor those who are actually implementing it, where will those large number of illegal migrants be rounded up and kept, how they will be moved back, and what would be interestingly the response of the Afghan government at the moment. So the Afghan interim government is facing its own problems. Would they be very willing to accommodate this influx back into their country? What is their take on that? That has to be accommodated. And we also have to see what kind of arrangement UNHCR, Afghanistan, and Pakistan has on the issue of uh, those refugees which have proof of registration, because they also have to be eventually repatriated. And we know that in 2022, 12,000 refugees were repatriated, whereas this year only 6,000, so which is a very minuscule amount. So it's going to be a tall order. And my take is that it should be done gradually in phases and take into consideration the practical constraints so that all the entire process goes through smoothly. And doing so, our relations with Afghanistan also do not suffer, because whenever there are differences between Pakistan and Afghanistan, India fills that vacuum. And already there are certain reports that India has started making ingress in Afghanistan. But all said and done, it's a very laudable initiative which should have been done long ago, and it will go a long way in controlling the crime, transit control in our borders, And we have to ensure now that the visa regime and the passport regime is followed on all crossing points, starting from Kurkam, Ghulam Khan, Korlachi, and Chaman. As of now, except Torkham, where visa and passport regime is being used, on all other crossing points, especially Chaman, multiple entry regimes are being used. All that would be abolished as of 1st of November. And like I said, that the implementation modalities need to be worked out in coordination with the provinces whose capacity has to be built up, because provinces have to ensure the implementation of this.
Faisal, when we take a look at the situation at the moment, simultaneously, of course, while there is this deadline that's been given and the number of measures being taken to strengthen cross-border activity, there is also a lot of activity being done within Pakistan, within the cities as well, including the demolition of illegal settlements by the Afghan nationals. We've seen that happen in Islamabad as well, and the investigations being carried out in terms of detention of a number of people, and then, of course, with regards to their involvement in various activities. And I want to then understand that earlier when we talked about the way that different quarters are perceiving the current situation and the current decision being taken, and the kind of response we've seen from the Afghan Taliban regime, it seems that they are perhaps misinterpreting the situation, or they're taking a look at this in terms of a very reactive way, and perhaps it is being thought of and it is being spoken of as a very cruel gesture by the Pakistan enforcement authorities. And I want to understand, given the fact that the meetings that have been held with the Afghanistan embassy and with the different quarters in Afghanistan, it seems that there is a general agreement that documentation needs to be there. And if it's not there, then of course action is warranted. So where is this problem then emerging from, and how badly do you think it can possibly impact the way that Pakistan is also viewed internationally and its treatment of refugees within the country, because there seems to be no distinction drawn in the way people are responding?
Sana, let's be very fair. Problem is not from the government of Pakistan. Problem is not even obviously arising from the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. The problem itself is actually created by them people who have illegally crossed the borders, and they are living in Pakistan unaccounted for, and they don't have any documentations, and they never tried to get any documentations from UNHCR. They did not get registered with them, and they, wherever they found some place where they could live away from obviously the smaller cities, and somewhere wherever they could find a place, they were just they just started building their houses, and they started living there. This is unacceptable to any country in the world, and of course Pakistan would do the same. Pakistan would do anything which would appear to be something abnormal. Of course we have to act normal to this, and the people we are talking about, frankly, Sana, if we talk about these dwellings, they were like 7, 8, 10 houses. They would just make outskirts of the city, and whoever wants to buy a gun, they'll be buying it from there. Whoever has anything to do with the drugs, they'll be buying it from there. This was going on, and I think any sane country would obviously, the priority would be given to stop all of this menace, because eventually, of course, it is creating problems for our own society. It is increasing the crime within the society. If we talk about UNHCR, I mean, Farrukh would obviously agree with this, that in yesterday's show, we highlighted the role of UNHCR, and I was the one who actually said that UNHCR needs to do more. I was contacted by somebody from within the UNHCR, and they have told me that they are doing their best to outreach to all of the people who are living illegally in Pakistan,
to process them.
Yeah, to process them. But somehow in certain cases these people even avoid to get in touch with UNHCR for certain reasons. Nobody knows why. And at the same time, I was told by UNHCR that they are even trying to arrange accommodations for these people, whoever get enrolled with them or registered with them. I'm obviously told that there are very fascinating dwellings within Islamabad where Afghan nationals who are registered with UNHCR is paying for them, and the buildings after buildings, they are actually inhabited by them, and they are the legal ones. But if we talk about the illegal ones, of course it's a problem that needs to be tackled, and I think consideration must be given by the Afghan Taliban regime as well, that we are not doing anything that can create fuss for them. I mean, eventually these people belong to them and they need to go back. What was the purpose of them coming to Pakistan? They just wanted to avoid the bombings. They just wanted to avoid the war which was going on in Afghanistan at that time, and they crossed the border and came to Pakistan. Now there is no war. Now, when we know that, of course, Taliban regime itself claims that the Afghanistan security is far better now, then I think they should not be staying here illegally. Rather, they should be going back to their own country. And at the same time, Sana, the aspect which must be highlighted by everyone, that is of economy. They are burden on our economy, and there are certain businesses they obviously they are doing in Pakistan and paying no taxes. I mean, it is unaccounted for. They are involved in smuggling. They are involved in smuggling in arms. They are involved in facilitating the terrorist. Terrorism is being facilitated by them because they are not unaccounted for, and nobody knows about them where they are. So obviously these kind of elements, they need to be eradicated from the society.
Absolutely, and I understand the number of issues that you talked about, Faisal, but I want to understand practicality as well. And Farrukh, when you take a look at the situation at the moment, it seems that a lot of this discussion has only been brought up since this particular decision has been taken, and perhaps this is a problem that goes way back. And I want to understand then, even if we agree on what should really be the case and what is important to Pakistan in terms of its security situation, is this really the best possible scenario at the given moment, the best possible time frame that is being given, the best way to actually treat and impact the illegal foreign nationals living in the country? Is this the route that perhaps is something that also takes a look at the situation in Afghanistan? As Faisal was talking about, of course it should be there, that they should be welcome, but is the situation good enough for people to return? Of course the UNHCR should be doing a lot of things to make sure that the documentation process there, but has it been doing it? Hasn't the process been slow for very long, and how exactly were we going to overcome that? And then now that, of course, there are so many problems that the country is facing in terms of illegal activity and terrorist activities, did we even have the time to be able to factor that in? And was this the best possible scenario?
Right. Wow. 6 questions, on top of what Faisal has been actually saying. And I have to respond to that also, because somewhere in the discussion he ended up claiming that I agree on everything with him. Okay. So regarding UNHCR, I believe that it was my assertion. He was talking about infusion of more cash. I was saying that at least to add more staff so that processing starts, and the people who are waiting for in the long line, they can be processed, and we know who is actually legal and who is illegal, right? So I'm glad that somebody actually reached out to Faisal. Usually people reach out to Faisal because he has somehow become our PR guy as well. But regarding the timing, I just wanted to point out, let me quote a quote that comes to mind. If one were to expect perfection, Rome would have never been built, right? Yeah. When it comes to timing, Sana, we are already 20 years too late. This should have been actually taking place when the war on terror started, because documentation is very important. That was the time when we actually came up with the idea of Nadra, when the country actually started documenting economy as well. And at that time, we kind of sort of dropped the ball when it came to, because especially the leader at that time, General Musharraf, used to insist that the border is so porous we cannot do much about it, right? But now that we have hardened the border, we have fenced most of the border, and we have the lingering problem of terrorism, what should we do? At that time, whenever we used to talk about repatriation of the legal, legal immigrants, refugees, at that time we were told that there is infighting going on in Afghanistan. So, surprise, surprise, now there is no infighting in Afghanistan. Whosoever won has won, and there is only one government there, no matter what you think. So, they are stable. Secondly, the aspect regarding one thing that you earlier asked about the reaction of Afghan Taliban, and I heard my friend who also perhaps apart from our PR outreach, he is also Afghan Taliban's PR outreach. I heard Faisal saying that the problem doesn't lie with Afghan Taliban nor our side. So in the end, I end up thinking that perhaps the only problem is with me, nobody else. The humble submission is that Afghan Taliban say that it is cruel. Why is it that so many people have come to Pakistan, Sana, in the past 2 years? It is because of the fear of Afghan Taliban. You have a great opportunity to prove to the world and your own citizens that you are not going to be vindictive against women who want to study, against artisans who want to actually continue with the artistic pursuits, with ex-soldiers who might have actually surrendered and left the country. So if you want to actually rehabilitate them, this is the high time. So where is the cruelty? Cruelty is baked into what the Afghan Taliban is, because they have to actually keep on suppressing their citizens, and then this happens. So I mean, pot, meat, cattle, yeah. Right? So this is that kind of situation. Regarding logistics, I totally get it. There are concerns regarding the logistics. Where are you going to put so many people, right? But first of all, see what we are going through. It is not merely law and order. It is not merely smuggling. There is a systemic cultural issue at play here. For example, today there was a briefing where we were told that 90% of polio cases are taking place in Afghan refugee community. They come from a country where they don't have their writ of state. They didn't have for 40 years. So what happens is that everything is reactionary. Wherever they have gone, and when Faisal was talking about Kachi Abadis, I just wanted to say that the kind of life they have spent is not called life, because those shanty towns are horrible, yeah. Right? But the fact is that if they go back to their homes, they can be better. Here in these Kachi Abadis, in these shanty towns also, we have seen that they refuse to pay electricity bill, because in Afghanistan there was hardly any collection, so they continue with the same system here as well. Pakistan has to start behaving like a nation state. So in logistics terms, where are you going to keep them? The first thing is, when you start with this activity, a lot of these people already voluntarily begin to leave, and this is what is happening for the past 2-3 days. Then there are people who are hardened, who are not going to be very easily displaced or brought back. There you actually create some temporary silos, and I agree with Brigadier Saab that in the end you'll have to have a staggered deadline. The first deadline is 31st October. Then you'll have to have some mitigation and some means to keep on sending people back in batches. Once that happens, things will start improving.
All right. Janjua Saab, there is also a ban on a number of imported goods within the Afghan transit trade, and of course this is also in part due to a lot of the smugglers also importing a lot of these goods. But I want to then understand that when we talk about the Afghan transit trade facility and to be able to go ahead in a smooth way with increase of trade with the country, I want to then understand how beneficial will such measures be in being able to support that and whether or not this perhaps is a short-term measure that is required at the moment and will be later catered to. And then secondly, whether these measures are possibly going to be looked at by the Afghan Taliban regime in a positive manner, given the fact that both the counterterrorism activities and better trade are in their own favor. Yet we have seen previously also that in a lot of ways they are unable to act according to that, even with regards to providing safe havens to organizations such as the TTP. It seems that there is a lot of reluctance coming in from the Afghan Taliban side. Will they be able to view the need of a collective response?
Yeah, I'll come to that, Sana, but just very quickly, I would like to respond what was being discussed. Previous speaker, Pitafi, actually reminded of my favorite novel, The Grapes of Wrath, in which the story of a family which travels in a small truck in the United States. The whole life is revisited. The sins of past come to visit them, and there's a poetic justice in what is happening to them. You see, we have done 8 agreements since 1988. We are signatories to 1951 Convention, and we are not supposed to abide by the refoulement clause, which is we can turn them back. How we entered into agreements with UNHCR and how UNHCR exploited our situation also needs to be factored in. And I think there's a need of having a relook on our policy, which was enacted in 2013. So another example is 2014, once in the wake of APS carnage in Peshawar, 3 lakh refugees, they moved back voluntarily because there was a climate of fear that the entire population of Pakistan would turn against them. That was a kind of a incentive for them to move back. So once the state shows a resolve, it has to be based upon a clearly enunciated set of policies and matching capability to implement those policies. Because if our provincial government and separatists does not have capability to manage this repatriation, I think we'll have problems. And this was what I was alluding to. Okay. We have examples of Iran. Iran is also hosting 1 million refugees. They issue work permits to one, and whenever there is a problem, they are deported back, and there is no resistance or there's no criticism from other government because their internal controls are very strong. So we have to look inwards. We have to put our own house in order and see how strict rules we implement, how we deal with UNHCR, and what kind of facilities we accord, what kind of asylum seeking status, and it, several other rule making advantages is ceded to UNHCR. There is a population of 7 million, 7 lakh of them, which have crossed after 2021. They are a different category. They have to be resettled, and countries like United States, UK, Canada promised take them back in resettlement. That settlement process is going very slow. There are problems with UNHCR. There are problems registering those who have come. And if we see the conditions, these 7 lakh refugees have created a kind of a problem in Islamabad because the entire hotels are booked, the economy is suffering, the people, local businesses are taking a hit. So hospitality has a limit. Even consider the countries like UK, where the ministers sold a Braverman's statement about the refugees. And mind you, UK is signatory to 1951 Geneva Convention. Braverman said that they are concerned about a hurricane of refugees, and they just contain the refugees to certain camps. They are not as magnanimous as us. So those who are legal have to be dealt with differently. Those who are illegal have to be, eased out. incentives have to be created to move them back, and I think a very good step has been taken on that score. Now, coming over to your transit trade thing, now this thing is, I think yesterday also it was debated in several channels, and there was a figure being quoted of $6 billion just to Afghanistan, and then their goods are smuggled back, and sometimes half of that amount that containers inside Pakistan. Now, this is all your internal management. What if we create this structure, we annoy the Afghan government also, and yet our cross-border smuggling does not cease? There is a mafia, there's a whole ecosystem of organized crime linked with the transit trade. It's a very good decision, but it should be implemented, and we have to look at our cross-border transit trade, border control mechanism. We have to see various organizations are responsible to clear the goods, that they are properly treated, their accountability is done, and exemplary retributive action is taken if something goes wrong. Only then. Otherwise, if the Afghans, we see them at Torkham, they'll go to Chabahar. Already some movement has started. The goods go to Chabahar, from Chabahar to Afghanistan, and then back from all crossing points into Pakistan. Because a soft state cannot defend its economic security. So steps are all very laudable. They are very welcome. I think they should have been taken long. But my, again, emphasis implementation and very strict accountability of all agencies, organizations which are meant to implement this entire mechanism of border control and transit trade.
Right, Janjua Sahab, there's also, of course, when we talk about the different ways in which this policy decision is then going to materialize on ground, and of course the role that could have possibly been played by UNHCR and the rest, I want to then understand that, of course, we've given a deadline. Whether or not there is any extension or there is a way forward, of course, remains to be seen. But I want to understand then that are we prepared and planned enough to be able to execute this within this timeline as well, with the different agencies being involved, with the different provincial governments being involved, with the different stakeholders being involved, and to make sure that this is a process that is in fact carried out in terms of a proper exchange of information, a proper channel, and a standardized execution where there is no unfair treatment given to anybody who is not an illegal foreign national in the country, where there is a proper process in which we don't experience anything at the borders that is causing unnecessary concern for Pakistan in terms of the families that are stalled there, perhaps, or any sort of practical issues that can possibly come up, because it seems that while we talk about the time frame being limited for the illegal foreign nationals, we are also restricted to that time frame to actually execute this entire process.
Yes, the most important thing that's happened is the single visa regime. That's very good. Henceforth, whosoever will go back and whosoever will come into Pakistan's territory would have a passport, will have better control. The registration will help our databases as well. To your specific question here, I'm more worried about the logistics part of the whole exercise. The deadline is, and I'm not very sure of the capability of our provinces. The federal government has given a policy, and provinces, if they lack the capacity to keep and hold such a large number of people who are ended up to be repatriated, there the problems will appear. And from which points they will be taken, what time it will take, will Afghan government officials cooperate, will they not create some kind of problems, because already they have fenced some kind of reservations, and there are views that they are asking for some kind of again extension of the deadline, because we have been extending deadlines for the legal repatriation 2008 times, and this time also their desire to extend this process. So all these three factors have to be well considered if we have to ensure smooth rounding up repatriation of all refugees is to be.
Right. Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Brigadier Retired Rashid Wali Janjua Sahab, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Faisal, the reason, of course, that when we take a look at this entire issue and we discuss various aspects of it, what is important also, of course, is for us to be able to execute the plan as intended, which is why I asked a last question from Janjua Sahab as well. And I want to understand, given the way that previous, perhaps, such engagements or involvements have been carried out in the past, there seems to be some sort of hindrance or that has been faced previously with regards to exchange of information and for the provinces and the federal government to be on the same page. And I want to then understand, even with the national security plan, for example, there were certain issues that were raised between different coordination cells that was required for it to be executed smoothly. So when we talk about this particular issue, and of course it involves a lot of international attention as well, exactly how then will we be able to overcome this, given the interim setup at the moment and the way that such a huge amount of perhaps people, individuals and organizations and governments are going to be involved?
Yes, Sana, if we obviously look at current policy which is being implemented, I'm pretty much sure that there would be outcry from different NGOs, from different INGOs, and of course it would be considered as a too hasty kind of policy implementation, in which nobody is given a second chance to, of course, get registered in Pakistan and somehow avoid their presence in Pakistan, and of course if they can avoid the going back to Afghanistan. And to me, I think NGOs and INGOs, they will be outcrying about it, but at the same time we must understand and that it is essential for Pakistan to do it. Sada, here I want to tell about when it took place in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. I would take the names of Mirpur Azad Kashmir and then Kotli and all of these smaller cities of Azad Jammu and Kashmir.
Yeah.
When the similar kind of policy was implemented by AJK government, they made sure that of course not a single illegal immigrant was left behind, and they did it very well, and they even gave them a chance that if somebody had some kind of property made or some kind of immovable or movable property, both sides, if they had such kind of properties, they even gave them time to sell them so that they can get the money out and they can go back. And by the way, majority of them, obviously when they got out of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, rather than going back, they simply dispersed themselves in within Pakistan elsewhere, and that's what been taking place. And now, of course, when Pakistan does it, to me, if I look at the time frame, I don't disagree with the policy itself. It is the policy that must have been implemented long ago, but at the same time I believe the time frame is very narrow, and it should be increased. It should be in the phases in which the population at a large scale, of course more than 1 million people we're talking about, they should be given a chance, and maybe majority of them, they would take their own routes to go back to their country, and in that way, of course, Pakistan won't be needing to spend too much money for their movements. I was just going through a list of simply today's case, in which 500 and odd people were obviously sent back, and for that, of course, the logistics it took place, and of course that requires money. Then the manpower which is being used to, of course, move them out from Pakistan towards the Afghanistan, it is going to take hell lot of money if we talk about. At the same time, Sana, I want to mention earlier, obviously one point was highlighted about the education of the females. Of course, the world talks about the education of the females in Afghanistan, and I'm someone who has always advocated that they must take place. And of course, I was so happy that it was part of the Doha Accord that Taliban are being forced to do that. Last weekend, during the weekend, I was invited by one of the friends at a dinner, and the waitress, she was an Afghan national, and of course the way she spoke, her English was very good. And while she was speaking to me, and I asked her, where are you from and how old are you, because she looked very, very young, and she said she's 18-year-old. And I said, where did you study? Then she goes, oh well, I studied obviously from my father, and she could not study. And if why I'm highlighting that, UNHCR, it's responsibility of the UNHCR, because she is registered with the UNHCR. They are not providing them with the opportunities of studying in Pakistan. She should have been in the university, and that's what I asked her. Why don't you go to university? Because you're very smart, you're very
I understand, and of course
and you should be in a university.
There's so many people, and of course that was a concern when I spoke earlier as well, in terms of the people involved and the people that are being impacted in all of these decision making, and whether or not we're catering for that. Farrukh, you wanted to add something on that as well?
Yeah, two or three things, but very kindly Faisal has added to my burden by actually bringing up education. I think that one of the things that kept on hurting me when Afghan Taliban took over, when the Ashraf Ghani government actually melted down, and when people were scurrying for their life, was that I kept on getting texts from kids who used to be my students, in exchange students, right? Afghan kids who were here, and we kept on telling them that there is a bright future waiting for you, and all of a sudden the entire world came crashing down. I think that the first responsibility is not UNHCR's. The first responsibility is Afghanistan governments. These are Afghans, and I wish Afghan Taliban could have shown the bigness of heart, that they could have actually made an environment so welcoming that all these citizens were back in their country, and they were given opportunity to actually excel in their professions. Unfortunately, they keep on undermining their own capacity by going into ideological directions that are actually, because of interpretation of faith, the rest of Muslim world has moved beyond those points, but they actually keep on sticking to those ideas, and then they force you to speak to them on that level, and that is where you lose the entire control, because you have to talk to them as a state, not as an ideological group. The second thing that you were talking about, transit trade, you and Brigadier Sahab were talking about the numbers that have been coming out. The question is, why is it that such data is usually kept under lock and key? This should be available for public scrutiny all the time. And finally, regarding repatriation, I thought that Faisal had a change of heart mid-program, because at the start he was saying that they are smugglers, they are terrorists, and then he said that there should be humane treatment of them as well. My humble submission is most of them would not be terrorists or smugglers. But honestly, given the American example, other countries where anti-immigration forces have been very strict and they have been wild, I think it will be good if we can be more humane and kind. But I think while you'll have some staggered mechanism to send them back, this deadline is there to stay, and this will be enforced.
All right. We're going to quickly also take a look at some good news that have been coming in with the ICC tournament, with Pakistan at least winning the first challenge and defeating New Zealand by 81 runs. And this is important, of course, given what is happening at the moment, Faisal, with a lot of sort of focus on the way Pakistan is going to be performing on Indian soil after such a long time. And of course, this World Cup has added importance for all of us because of that. How do you see this first victory?
First of all, obviously, it was a good breather. And why I'm saying this, because just before that, there were two warm-up matches, and both of them Pakistan lost. And I was obviously thinking about how would they bounce back. They have bounced back, but it was, a sort of half-hearted win, I would call it, because the Netherlands, it's a team. Fair enough, they have very good players within it, But of course, Pakistan was expected to at least cross 300 mark. They did not do it. They have won very easily, but I must say they should have done better. Obviously, captain Babar Azam, his performance wasn't, of course, good today, and there was a number of players who were expected to perform well. They did not do it. And if we talk about the bowling, bowling of Pakistan, it shined today, and I think this is how they need to progress in future matches. Especially the next coming up match is going to be very crucial. Of course, they have today's match with them in their bucket, and next match is with Sri Lanka. It is going to be a very tough match for Pakistan because young Sri Lankan team, they have been performing really well, and probably that is going to be the match that would, of course, shape up Pakistan for further matches and tournament itself.
All right, Farrukh, Faisal says they could have done better. Do you agree? And if yes, then do you think that the pressure is catching up to them?
Right, Sanam. I think that whatever the match was, I was satisfied with the performance. Remember that, oh, okay, I get again the zoom out. But, one thing that was quite, interesting was that today I saw a statement coming from ex-cricketers from, West Indies, who were advising Pakistan not to take Netherlands lightly because it is a very important team and it is in very good shape. So I think that if Faisal is disappointed, next time I suggest in the next World Cup he should lead. He should lead the Pakistani team. Otherwise, sitting here we can say whatever we want to. There are pressures on ground, Sana, and there will be some time that you will see some kind of build-up of momentum. I think the boys played well, and in
as long as we win, right?
And this is just a start. It takes some time for all players to start clicking. So we don't need to actually be too harsh to them.
Great. I hope there are better things coming along the way in this tournament and that we're able to achieve the best possible height and bring the cup home. That's all that we have from the debate. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal. We'll now see you on